Hey everyone, and welcome back to NDC. Have you ever looked at a SwiftUI view or even an app and thought, this is pretty bland, it needs more color, it needs some more life? Well, today we're going to be exploring exactly that. This video is about colors, shapes, and gradients. These are the foundation of beautiful modern designs in SwiftUI. Understand these three and you can make anything look polished, from buttons to backgrounds, all without bloating your code. So if you're interested in learning how to add these, how to design and augment them, let's go ahead and dive on in. So SwiftUI gives us some basic colors. We can access colors by using the capital C color, then use the dot to access all the built-in system colors or any custom colors. I'll also show you how to do that later in the video, but let's say we wanted to have the color of red. We would display that by color.red. Now we've added that color to our program. Since it's in a VStack, it's just going to be filling up as much space as it totally can. What happens if we add another color? Let's go ahead and add color.blue. You can see that we've added another view, just fully filling in color. So we can use the color prefix, then with the property display what color we want. What if we don't want to use a system color? What if I have, some color values that I want to explore? Well, we can do that too. We can use color once again, but we can reference the RGB values. So let's start off with the red value, and we're going to set it to be a double. So we'll try 0.5, then the green value, let's do 0.8, and then finally the blue value. And let's go ahead and do 0.2. We can see that we've made this nice green color, so you can also define colors with the RGB value. Let's say we wanted to apply this color to a shape. Maybe I want to make a rectangle that's maybe like a little bit of a profile card or has some game settings that's appearing. We can add a shape, either a circle or a rectangle, by just typing them out. So in this case, rectangle, and we're going to choose the one with the empty brackets, and this is going to create that new rectangle shape. Now we have the color being separate because we actually want to make this color a property. So in this case, if we want to fill what that color is, we'll use the dot fill, and then within the brackets, we just need to add them, we'll be able to add the color. This looks pretty similar to our full color here. If we were to change this to be a circle, you can see here that we now have our beautiful circle. If we want to add things like a stroke to outline the circle and even add a color, we can totally do that too. So we can use the dot stroke property. From here, we can assign it to be a color. So let's add dot red. When you're working with colors and different properties, you don't always need to put the color prefix. In this case, SwiftUI knows, hey, he wants to add a red border here. Now we can barely see that kind of outline of the stroke around the circle. Let's go ahead and add a line width. And we can assign a value. So if we make it 5, it's really thick. If we do 10, even thicker, and then 1 is that really low default. So if we make it 10, it's really going to make this stand out. If we're not happy with the size of our circle, maybe this is way too big for what we're using it for, we can simply add a frame. From here, we can adjust the width and the height. So if we want to set the width to be 100, we totally can. If you're working with a screen that has various sizes, you can also instead choose the max width. And this will give it a cap of how big it's allowed to go or scale. Same thing if we want to do the height, we could do max height, or we can even do minimum height or even ideal height. If we want to keep it basic today, we can just have normal height values and normal width values. Make sure that they start with the lowercase there. Okay, and there we have our circle. If we want to do the same thing for a rectangle, we can even go ahead and copy and paste. And maybe for this fill, we'll just use a default system color of teal. And we can change the outline to be black, align with. You can play around with all of these different things to make your program or your design fit for you. What I love doing with my rectangles is applying a corner radius to smooth out those edges. It does make the stroke feel a little bit goofy on the line width sometimes, but I think it still looks good. There's so much more that you can do with these shapes. So if you use dot notation, we can see here we even have rotation effect, shadow, our classic padding. For the rotation effect, we can actually set this to be degrees, and we can actually include a double. So if I wanted this to be 35 degrees, we can see here that it's rotated a little bit. Let's try 45 so it looks more like that diamond. And we'll definitely add some padding between these two shapes. There we go. So you can play around and augment these shapes as you will. They're really great, in my opinion, when used in a Z stack, and you can overlay items on top or behind them. Alright, I'm just going to quickly get rid of our circles so we can focus more on our rectangle. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe we'll do 300 by 300. Okay, so what if I wanted to make this shape not just have a static tail background, but I wanted to go crazy and include a gradient. Also, if you have fill on by default, it'll be black or white depending on light or dark mode. I would suggest for adding gradients to go to your object library in the top right or Command-Shift-L on your keyboard, and I would search under the views, so this left tab here, gradient. And I would actually drag and drop on in a linear gradient. It'll save you a lot of time, trust me. So with the linear gradient, or whichever gradient you choose, all of them have a different style, you can choose what colors are available within your gradient. You can see here that we have a gradient, and then it's going to be an array of colors. So in this case, it's going to be red and blue. We can of course change this to be any custom color with RGB values or default ones, as we can see here with dot notation. So if I wanted to do orange and purple, I totally can. And we can see it kind of has this left to right gradient effect. This is because on the start point, it's currently leading and the end point is trailing. We can of course update these. So if we wanted it to go top to bottom, we totally can. And you can play around with these, right? This is all available through dot notation, so you can try out any of these if you wanted to go to the center and kind of see how that looks. This pushes it over a little bit more. You have complete creative control and freedom. I also really recommend combining the gradients for backgrounds. I love a gradient background. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but let's go ahead and embed our entire view, so that top V stack, in a Z stack. And this is going to allow us to really add a different background. So again, I'd recommend grabbing a gradient from the object library, and this time let's do a radial gradient. I'm going to update my colors. Maybe for this one, I'll do white to, let's do green, white to green. We can see here on this one, instead of having a start point and end point, we have where the center is. So you can actually choose where this is. If you don't want your center to exactly be the center, you can even make it the bottom, right? Totally up to you. You are your own designer. We even have a start radius and an end radius. Now, this looks a little bit goofy because on the top and bottom of our screen, it's not being totally covered. If you are working with a background, especially if you have like a background color or gradient, again, it doesn't have to be a gradient. You could just do a static color. Make sure that you're using the edges ignore safe area, then within the argument brackets, all. That's going to allow it to expand outside. Cool. I'm going to shrink our, this is kind of clipping off the phone screen here. I'm going to shrink this back down as I want to quickly cover the shadow. So we can add a shadow. The first property that we can add is a radius. So in this case, if I really want the shadow around this rectangle to glow, I'll make it 10. If we set it to be 100, it doesn't really love to go that far. So try to stick it to a lower number. I find that 10 is a pretty decent shadow, but of course, different use cases. And the shadow's black, and if we zoom in, we can kind of see it. And it's going to make it pop off the screen a little bit more, not too much. So if we want to actually change the color of the shadow, maybe this black isn't really popping off, especially because we have that really thick line width of the black stroke here. We can actually determine what color it is. We can do color, colon, and then we'll include our color. So if we want a dot red, comma, space. Now, I'll zoom in a little bit here. We have that, ooh, I'm flying all over the place. We have that more of a red glow, and here we can reduce our line width to 1 to see that red glow popping off a little bit more. So not only can you add that shadow, default that black color, we can also determine what color it is. I think this is really cool to make those custom shapes, custom designs. You are the master of colors and shapes now. But here's the thing, we're only really using the built-in system colors for this, which are pretty cool, and we explored the RGB, but what if I want a consistent color to use within my app? If you navigate to your assets catalog on the left side of the screen, you'll see here that we have accent color. You can change this to change the default color for things like your navigation buttons, any of those default system appearances. Otherwise, if we press the plus button in the bottom or right click within this kind of asset catalog window, we can create a new color set. We can give this whatever name we want. Make sure you name it appropriately because we will need to reference it. So if I call this app color 1, right, you might want to call it whatever your app is or maybe what the purpose is. And we'll say by default it's white. You'll want to open up the inspector panel on the far right of Xcode in the top right. From here, we can choose what devices it's actually available on, as well as the appearances. If you're planning on adding light and dark mode into your app, I would suggest putting it to any light dark. This is going to allow us to change the appearance of this color based on the system settings of light appearance or dark appearance, aka light and dark mode on the device. From here, we can change the different input methods. So if you want a floating point value, a bit hexadecimal, the different content styles, etc., etc. Let's try to change it to an extended range RGB and then do the 8-bit. Now with the mode selected, so let's say when the phone's in light mode, I want it to be, let's make it like a weird custom color here. I'm going to do this like more forest green. You can also, I prefer using the color panel as well. I don't know, I kind of like doing this as well. But I'm going to have this more forest green when we're in light mode. Then I'll select on the dark mode. And maybe we're in dark mode, it's actually going to be a red. It isn't an actual great design, but we'll get through it. Okay, so now let's go back to our content view here where we have the colors. And instead of the color dot green, we can change this to be color dot, and then we're going to reference our app color 1. We'll let our view load back on up here. And there we go. I know we had it be green before. So maybe we'll also change the gradient here instead of purple to also be the app color 1. And it should appear with dot notation. If you ever want to reference it, you can go back to your object library, and under the colors, you can also access your app color here, and you can drag it on it. So now if we swap our appearances to light and dark appearance respectively, might be a little bit laggy in the simulator. There we go. So in dark appearance, we have that more red color. And then when we go back to light mode, we have that foresty green color. You can also test this in the simulator as well. So before we head on out, I do want to quickly mention opacity. And this is also something that can be applied to custom colors or those static colors. So when we have opacity, we need to be passing through a double value. If you have 1.0, that means it is completely at the full opacity, right? But if you were to change this to be 0.5, you'll see that it starts to fade a little bit. And the lower we go, if we go 0.2, it's even more faded, 0.1, and 0.0 is actually going to make it completely, pretty much clear. If you look at it, it looks a little bit weird. But you're able to use this double to really fine tune your opacity of your colors, even change this orange if we want. So dot opacity, and then include that double. Again, 1.0 is full. Make this 0.5 opacity, and it's really starting to fade away. So there is a lot more to explore with color. The other gradients are pretty cool. You can even have that angular gradient for that rotation of color flows. You're also not limited to just 2 colors in your gradients. I'm going to go ahead and really quickly show you a couple bonuses here. So I like to show this one off actually with the linear gradient. We'll add our dot edges, ignore safe area dot all. So when we have our kind of gradient here, you'll notice that it's an array. So we can totally just continue to add more colors on in. So if I wanted to add color.orange, if I wanted to then also add color dot, oh, we need a capital C there, color dot purple. You know, you can add as many gradients as you want. It might turn into a situation where there's too many chefs in here. This kind of looks like a rainbow threw up. But you are able to add as many colors to that gradient as you like. You're not just limited to two. I also didn't mention a couple of the other shapes. There's also capsule, and just like with the other views that we have here, this is kind of like an oval with already, I guess, corner radius effect. There is also the ellipse, if I'm saying that right, which again is kind of more of that oval, and you can apply any of those properties that we're doing with the shape and rectangle as well. The other one is path, which is actually an outline of a 2D shape, and you can get really creative with the different X, Y values, etc. And this allows you to make a little bit more of that custom shape. But that's a little bit advanced. I honestly find with the base shapes, I'm pretty satisfied. You can also explore animation within gradients to make them more dynamic, to maybe have a moving gradient. But remember, mastering color, shape, and gradients is the first step towards pro-level SwiftUI design. Master these fundamentals and then start to explore adding in those other skills from SwiftUI. Start by using the asset catalog for your custom colors, and your future self will thank you. And since you've stuck around to the end of the video, I'm going to show you a little bonus trick. So let's say you're someone who's like, I love just viewing what my colors look like. If I see color.orange, I can't really imagine that. I get it. So if you do dot fill, and let's say we want to add our color. Well, we're going to start off by typing out color as we normally do. Then we're going to add another set of brackets. Within here, do the hashtag color literal. It's a little bit weird, but if we add another bracket, don't ask me why that works, you'll see that we get a little kind of asset catalog picture. So now that we have this, it kind of looks like a little picture. Go ahead and double click on it and select your color. You can even hit other if you want to actually pull up the color wheel. So let's say I want it to be this pink color. For some reason, when you add the color literal, it removes one of your brackets. So make sure you add another bracket at the end. We can see here that our color now reflects whatever we've chosen. So we'll just select it again. We'll change it to be this yellow. And there you go. So if you're someone who's like, I want to visualize my colors, or when I'm adding the colors, you know, this makes more sense to me in my code, go ahead and feel free to do it. It's a little bit janky to get going, but yeah, it's just like a cool little hidden Xcode SwiftUI feature, color literal. So go ahead and give it a try. But for any production apps where you're going to be using Darkmode, I would avoid color literal, as they unfortunately do not adapt automatically. So if you enjoyed this video and you now have a better understanding of shapes, colors, and gradients, and the hidden tip of color literal, make sure you go ahead and drop a like, dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.